Hello, lovely humans. Welcome back to another episode of Lovely Humans Club podcast. Today we're talking about one of my favorite holidays of all time. That's Thanksgiving, which is a really underrated holiday. Now, hear me out. I am not against people decorating for Christmas before Thanksgiving. I just really like Thanksgiving because I really like to cook and I really like to host people. So it just brings my heart an uncanny amount of joy to celebrate with my family, with my friends, things that we're grateful for. So between that and Christmas dinner and Easter dinner, your girl likes to go a little ham. Get it? Because you serve ham. I was extremely fortunate to have been raised by an incredible hostess. For those of you who don't know, haven't heard the story, or you have, I'm repeating myself anyways. My dad's a pastor, has been a senior pastor majority of my life. So my mom is a pastor's wife. I would have these situations where my dad would be like, oh, hey, by the way, 20 people are coming over for lunch. And she'd be like, okay, I'll just throw something together real quick. Or, our house was often the place where we had gatherings. In fact, my mom set up our home in such a way that it would be ideal for gatherings. She loved hosting. So it wasn't all just like last minute things chucked at her. But I watched her put together these different events and I watched how she did things and I watched how she made people feel. And that therein right there is the whole reason that I actually became a wedding planner, because of how my mom made people feel at events. Well, that, I wouldn't say that's one of the top reasons. How about that? And so that's something I try really hard to do when I host or run weddings. I don't host the weddings, obviously, is I try to make sure that we're focusing on how people feel. That's why I really value stuff like the timeline, about having a good DJ, about having meal times. I try to be really cognizant of what the guests are feeling at different times. So imagine that being held in my own home. Except for now, I'm the chef, I'm the DJ, I'm also the planner running the timeline, and I still have to parent my children and make sure my house is clean enough. So it took me, honestly, quite a while to get the rhythm of this right. But I'm telling you, this year's going to be my year. Guys, I have been hosting Thanksgiving for almost a decade now, and I have screwed up enough times to know what to do to have a really stress-free Thanksgiving day. In fact, I know it so well that I put together a whole Thanksgiving meal planner. I've talked about it every video this week over on my channel. I'm also bringing it up over here in case you guys are interested. It's how many pages? Let me see. 19, but there's a cover page and like an end page. So let's call it 17 pages worth of material that has absolutely everything. 9 different recipes that I use every single year. You don't have to do all of them. I just love having a myriad of sides. That's just me, okay? So you can just like pick and choose the ones that you want. But these are so good. Like so good. And then because we all know that one of the hardest parts of running a Thanksgiving day is getting all of your food out hot at the same time. Do you know what kind of sorcery you have to possess to be able to do that? Just like, and my mom was so good at this. And I was like, how am I not getting this yet? So I put together 2 different schedules for you. I talked about this in the Monday video where we're talking about the prep and the timeline and everything. We'll just like glance over this real quick right here. But some of us have fridge space where we can prep stuff ahead of time, or we can freeze it, where we can throw it in the fridge and then just reheat it on Thanksgiving Day. And other people don't, which means they might not have the space to prep anything ahead of time. So I got really strategic with the layout of both of those, being really cognizant. If you're making mashed potatoes, potatoes are shelf stable, onions are shelf stable. The second you start chopping them up and cooking them, they need to go into something to keep them refrigerated or frozen, although I don't recommend freezing mashed potatoes. I know the internet says you can, but the texture gets like funky to me. But you can do if you want to. Anywho, that's all included in this meal planner. What else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something. Oh yeah, and the week-long schedule. So like when you should be getting your bird out, when you should start prepping different ingredients based on the amount of fridge space that you have. And this whole thing is written as if you only have 1 oven and 4 burners. That's it. So to be able to get everything out hot and ready at the same exact time, only using 1 oven and 4 burners, sounds impossible. But I'm telling you guys, I figured it out. And I threw it in this planner for you. So if you want, I will leave it in the show notes of the episode if you're listening to this, wherever you are listening to episodes. And I'll also leave it right up here. If you're watching the video version, it's going to be down below as well. You get the drill. So Monday I talked about the schedule. Yesterday I did 3 of the sides, which you should totally go check out. Tomorrow I'm going to do 3 more sides, and then Friday we're doing the bird. In fact, I literally, right before this video, I did the dry brine on the turkey, and I cannot tell you, it's so pretty. It's so pretty and it smells so good. This is going to be the best bird I've ever made. Ever! Which is also accurate because my husband normally does the turkey and the Traeger, and I was like, this year it's mine, baby. Because I feel like I've mastered it on chickens. So I think I can move that mastery over to a turkey. It's just a bigger bird. In fact, when Silas walked in earlier, he was like, that's a big chicken. And I start laughing. I think he's like, is that one of our Jersey Giants? Because as you guys know, we incorporated some bigger birds. I was like, no, dude, that's a turkey. He goes, oh, that explains it. So today's episode is more about just the tips that I've come across or come up with over the years, or learned from my mom, or learned from other people, or learned from weddings, or learned from mistakes. And they didn't really fit in any of the other concepts, so here we are. Top tips for a stress-free turkey day. Like that alliteration? Yeah, buddy. First and foremost, tip number 1. I don't know if we're numbering all of these, so I'm probably going to lose the plot at a certain point. I always do that whenever I do numbered videos. I'm like, 7 is 7, right? You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do the bird and the ham and the mashed potatoes and the stuffing and the green bean casserole and the rolls. Everything's included in the meal planner for you, of course, because I want to make sure that I didn't like skimp on anything. Also, the cranberry recipe will change your life. I will die on that hill. But if you have people coming, pawn off the sides on them. This was a myth that I subscribed to for like several years of being like, no, you're coming to my house. Allow me to cook for you. And then I was like, this is dumb. Do you know how many chefs I have in my life? My cousins, one of my dearest friends in the entire world, went to culinary school. Her brother-in-law, so my other cousin's husband, also is a professional chef. And then my husband's sister's husband is also a professional chef. So when I went, shut up, Jamie, let people bring their stuff, I was introduced to sausage stuffing. Like dressing with Italian or breakfast sausage, and changed my life. But I had to get out of my own narrow mindset of being like, I gotta cook everything myself and let other people bring things. And this is something, a lot of other people may not struggle with. It might be super obvious. Be like, well, yeah, Jamie, it's more of like a potluck style. That way you don't have to do it all by yourself. But there is something kind of romantic about being like, oh, I prepared this entire meal all by myself. Thank you so much. Nah. Hogwash. Have someone buy rolls from the grocery store. Although I will say the roll recipe I included is quite delicious. Piggybacking off that, you don't have to do a turkey. In fact, we might not even do a turkey this year, especially because I'm cooking one 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I have a feeling my family's going to be like, no, thank you. So what my family actually does now is we usually do a couple of tri-tips, a ham in the crock pot, by the way, which is the best way to do it because it doesn't take any other heating devices. You can just stick it on the counter and leave it there. And maybe a chicken or two, because just turkeys are in general really big. They take a long time to defrost. If you look at the schedule in the meal planner, it takes, a day for every 4 to 5 pounds of bird to defrost in a fridge. That's a lot of space. That's a lot of real estate to lose, especially if you only have one fridge, and a family to feed. So get flexible with it. If you want to try something different, go for it. I love when people have like Thanksgiving traditions that are not at all traditional. I think it's adorable. Tip number 3, don't be tempted to do it all in one day because you feel like that's the way it has to be. Make things ahead of time. And these are all like me speaking to my past self, where I'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh, Eliza's got the bird. I guess I'll start assembling things and maybe cooking all these sides and frantically trying to look up the recipes and get it all put together into, no, ma'am. It's so stressful. So that's why I like the schedule that I came up with, because it gives you a couple sides that you can make ahead of time, or a couple things that you can chop, and like mise en place, which is like French for like things in place, right? I might have just made that up, but I know it's a chef term where you like prep all your ingredients and put them in little bowls, or like set them aside so when you're ready to cook, it's just all done for you. Do that. Because as much as I want to look like Remy from Ratatouille, just like master chefing my way through Thanksgiving dinner, it's not practical. Especially when I want to go sit down and hang out with the people that are at my house. And I always do like a really, really, really bougie charcuterie board for Thanksgiving. I'm talking like, 7+ kinds of cheeses, multiple pickled things, nuts, fruits. And if there are not grapes dripping down from a top tier something or other, I don't want it. Tip number 4, it doesn't all have to be from scratch. It doesn't. You can buy the box stuffing from the grocery store. Like I said earlier, you could buy the rolls from the grocery store. You could buy the cranberry sauce, the gravy. It doesn't matter. You want to make it look fancy? Put it in a nice dish, and then no one's really going to be any the wiser. I just like cooking a lot. It's therapeutic, and it makes me really, really happy to do it. And I love cooking things from scratch for my family. There is something like very primal about it for me, but that's not the case for everybody. And I think actually a girlfriend of mine posted something on her stories earlier today. I'm going to pull it up and read it. Lauren, if you're listening to this, like I messaged her when I saw it, and I was like, I love your brain. I love how she thinks. Oh gosh, just sometimes it takes a good friend to say something for you to be like, oop, I'm humbled, but also you're genius and I love you. I hope she's okay with me sharing this on the podcast. She said, people talk pretty heavy about toxic processed foods. And that kept me so scared of everything that I froze, because she's on a cooking journey. She hasn't really cooked a lot in her past. And so she's like, I'm trying to do that now. She's cooking about 4 nights a week for everybody and really, really loving this journey for her. So I was like, okay, that's adorable. I love you. I love you so much. Then I decided just don't get into all that. That kind of fear is a choice, and I don't have any advice except try the best you can to eat food that's good for you and leave other people alone who choose differently from you. See, I just love her brain. Okay, so a major source of learning for me has been boxed food / pre-made food, like Grand's biscuits in a can. That's ready. It's gonna blow your mind. Because of how user-friendly they are, I can incorporate them into meals and learn from how they are used and what the ingredients / flavors are. Boxed food that you just put in the oven has inadvertently taught me so much about what goes in the stove and when, for how long, and what temperature. When I tell you that is like, I'm like, oh, I just want to bottle this human up. What a beautiful perspective. Like, what a gorgeous mindset. So if you're feeling pressure about hosting Thanksgiving and you feel like this, because I know I do, I feel this pressure to make absolutely everything. And that's why I'm trying really hard to work ahead this year so I can achieve that goal. But also, I don't mind punting to somebody else to have them pick something up. And that's had to been like a growth moment for me. But also, I'm an Enneagram 3. So some people might be listening to this and be like, Jamie, that's like a given. Of course, I'm not going to try to make everything from scratch. But I loved Lauren's perspective here when she shared that. And it, for me, I was like, So that's a really important point to make today. Don't let the fear of swinging keep you out of the game. Is that? I should not have tried to use the sports ball quote. Number 5, we touched on this earlier, but the biggest issue, I don't know why I'm making this motion, that affects the timing of your meal is your heating source. So get as creative as you can. For years, we had multiple different proteins that we'd cycle through or make or whatever. And I was like, I don't know when or how I'm supposed to cook this ham because my mom really likes getting a honey glazed ham. And it's the pre-done one that just needs to warm up, but that still takes hours. Like 3 hours. And so I knew that I had to figure out some sort of system to cook this ham and not interrupt all the other things that I have going on. Because remember, your girl likes cooking things from scratch. I like making multiple different sides. I will probably make multiple different sides for our Thanksgiving this year anyways. I just love it. And we're really fortunate because we also have like a flat top, a Blackstone flat top. I got it for my husband a couple Christmases ago. We also have a Traeger that we got used off of Craigslist. We have that crock pot. I can always borrow a crock pot from my mom. I have an Instant Pot. I've got like a little air fryer. Wow. Now that I'm listening on that, we sound rich indeed. So the more versatile you can get with how you're heating things up, the better. That's another reason, honestly, why I really love this meal plan is because it incorporates just enough time for the turkey to come out and rest for like 45 minutes. And then all of your sides go in then and either reheat or bake for the first time, which you should keep in mind if you're doing multiple sides at once. It's going to take slightly longer for the cooking time because the air cannot circulate as easily. So you might need to adjust accordingly, but it's heating all of them up at the same temperature. And I broke down all the times for you as well, like when things are supposed to go in. It's glorious. I know, I'll quit bragging about it, but someone said recently, you had me at same temp. Next tip, I think we're on number 6, short. Unless you have a second fridge, start to slowly clear space in your refrigerator about 2 weeks. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And yes, I'm absolutely serious. Because you're about to have a lot of food in there. Like a lot. And we're talking fresh produce. If you're doing green beans, obviously you can do canned. If you want to, I love the toothsomeness. Because you didn't know what toothsomeness was. Let me look it up recently. And my neighbors, like our dear friends, were like, he looked it up, he's like, that can mean handsome as well. Like, what? Oh, look at that toothsome fellow. Nobody ever call me that, okay? Especially after I told you how half of my face is broken. That would be just, don't call me toothsome. Call me tooth half toothed, partially toothed. Some are teeth, some are here, some are not. So if you start thinking ahead and you start like slowly clearing it out, eating leftovers, getting rid of expired products, things like that, then you'll make your life a lot easier when you're shopping for a lot of produce or a giant bird a handful of days before Thanksgiving. Tip number 7, empty the dishwasher the night before. Make sure your sink is empty, make sure your dishwasher is empty, make sure your kitchen is all wiped down. So when you wake up in the morning, you're not fighting through a cornucopia, get it? That was dumb. Of dishes on your counter or in your sink. So that means you assign it to your husband or your kids or whatever. Like, make sure that that's all nice and clean. So as you're cooking, you can toss things into the sink. And if you're using plates and flatware and glassware, your dishwasher is clean to just put things directly into. So you don't have to unload and then load it. My mom taught me that hack and I was like, you're a genius, Robin. So smart. Next tip is another great one from my mom. She would place out all of the decorative dishes with like a little scrap of paper inside them, denoting what was supposed to go in there right before people arrived. So we didn't have chips sitting out because she knew that if she put some Lay's potato chips out in a bowl with her 3 kids, we would just go by and like keep swiping some. We'd be like, Mom's not going to notice. And then half of it would be gone by the time people got there. So she knew. And there occasionally she'd like place the bag of chips in there or whatever. But she had it set up in such a way that if someone walked in and said, how can I help? She'd be like, put that in there. You'll find the dish. It's labeled. And I found that this tends to be really, really helpful if you're using decorative dishes. Now, I just want to say as an aside, like you don't have to. You can serve it in a 9x13 pan and people will be just as excited about it. I just happen to really enjoy, I mean, obviously I'm a freaking wedding planner. I love tablescapes. I love putting together tablescapes. I did one last year and I'm obsessed with it and I can't wait to add on to it this year. It's so good. And it brings my heart so much joy. So I like transferring things over into gorgeous looking dishes when possible. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just leave it in whatever it was cooked in. Just make sure it's on a trivet on top of the counter. And other times I'm like, you know what? I've planned enough ahead that I can treat myself to some beautiful decorative dishes. And if you do, lay them out the day before and mark what they are so people can help you. Tip number 9, don't forget appetizers. Like, don't forget those. You're going to need to have those if you're hosting and people are like hanging out and you're hanging out. Like I said earlier, I always go ham. I gotta stop using that line on the charcuterie board because I love them. I think they're so pretty. But also, you don't have to bring the appetizers. Someone else can bring them for you. And you're gonna want something to eat because usually Thanksgiving feast is like somewhere awkward, like late afternoon, early evening. We try to do ours around 5 p.m. So it's basically dinner. But that means I'm in the kitchen the entire day. I want something to nibble on. That's why I like charcuterie because it's just like it's like a grazing table, if you will. But make sure you have something or make sure someone's bringing something because you'll get a lot of when's it gonna be done? Or like swiping by to like grab samples of things if people are just hanging out. And this does get overlooked sometimes when you're hosting because you're like, I'm making the meal. Like, what more do they want from me? Well, if the meal takes 4 hours to make, there's a chance they might want something to snack on. Again, doesn't have to be you. Again, doesn't have to be from scratch. Just put it out there that you're going to definitely need some nibbly bits. Yeah, we're sticking with that. This next tip, number 10, probably would have been paired really nicely with number 2, and I might be repeating myself a little bit, or really trying to hang on to the idea of 12 points. You don't have to do traditional sides, in the same way you don't have to do a traditional protein. Yeah, I definitely should have smushed these two together. Oh well, here we are. We live and we learn. So the two that I do that I really enjoy are the honey thyme glazed carrots and the lemon pepper asparagus that were featured in yesterday's video along with my like rustic, gorgeous, delicious, no peel mashed potatoes. And there's something very like pot roast like about the carrots. It's like my nod to yams because I really don't care for them, but I know people at the table will want something a little bit sweet if they're used to that. And this is just like a way fresher take, in my opinion. I just think they're delicious. And I said this in a previous video, but my grandfather, I'll never forget, it was my first Thanksgiving making these. And I used to saute them in a pan with water and like render it down. And now I just roast them because it's so much easier. He takes a bite of them and he's like, these are delicious. They remind me of my childhood. These might be the best carrots I've ever had. He went back for 3 servings. And he's since passed. And I make them because I'm like, I think that was my first time hosting Thanksgiving. And I was so nervous. And my grandfather to have 3 like giant servings of these carrots that I toiled over that were actually really difficult to make. I'm glad I streamlined the recipe. It made my day. It made me feel really good. So I'm probably going to make them for the rest of my life. And then the lemon pepper asparagus, it's so easy. You could have it thrown together and cooked in 17 minutes. And that includes the time of throwing it together. It's that simple. And because it's lemony, everything usually for Thanksgiving dinner has like a heaviness to it, right? It's got a heartier flavor. It's salty. It's got all that going on for it. So to have the asparagus really brightens up the dish in a way that I really enjoy. And if you're only roasting it for like 15 minutes or so, it maintains that really gorgeous bite and that beautiful green color that adds a pop to your plate. Because what I like to do is I like to have a multicolored plate. Sometimes on Thanksgiving, when you look down, you've got mashed potatoes, turkey, gravy, and stuffing, dressing, whatever, the thing. It's all brown, which, I mean, it's a delicious brown. Like, don't get me wrong. When my mashed potatoes are finished, they're not gorgeous at all. I'm sure I could like sprinkle some little chives on there or something to like really greenify it. But I like having those pops of color on the plate because I think it makes it just so much more charming, in my opinion. So you don't have to do traditional sides. I still do those, and I do different ones because I want it to be pretty. Call me shallow, okay? But I consider it to be culinarily diverse. Tip number 11, if you need to speed defrost your bird, you could put it in cold water. Or, here's the deal. There's the FDA recommendations, and there's things that I would probably do in my own home. You should listen to the FDA. Here's what I've done in the past. Room temperature water. And I also don't know why we need to switch it out every 30 minutes. Maybe because we need to keep it cool enough so it doesn't go above a certain temperature. But I'm also like, do we need it to go above a certain temperature? If I'm monitoring this thing closely enough, you mean to tell me that I can't just like keep it in room temperature water for a couple of hours and kind of like watch it, you know? Or like temp it. We've got like the temperature probe things. I can't do that. Or defrost it in the cooler overnight. Never done that. So listen to the FDA, folks. But it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind in case you do get to the day where you're actually cooking the bird and it's not fully defrosted yet, which means it's going to take longer to cook. You can toss this into a cold water bath to speed up that process. So hopefully it shouldn't mess with anything. But that's also another reason why I like how I prepare the bird of doing a dry brine the day before, because you're getting your hands on it and you can really feel, oh my gosh, this is like super cold, or oh my gosh, I think this is still frozen. So then, you know, obviously with this, you can't soak it in cold water once it's been dry brined, but if you have to leave it on the counter for a little bit, watch the dogs. You know, I think it's going to be okay. But listen to the FDA. What do I know? Last but most certainly not least, have a plan for leftovers. I'm doing the hand again. If you're listening to the podcast version, you're spared. If I had a nickel for every time people are like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I'm like, just gallon-sized bags, okay? Which are sloppy in the fridge. And I actually really loathe having bags in my fridge in general because it makes things just feel really cluttered. But if you want to send food home with people, have deli containers ready, or little mini aluminum foil containers, like disposable ones with lids. Am I usually a fan of disposable containers? No, not necessarily. But in a capacity like this, if you're like, please take some, I overcooked, I don't want to be stuck with this anymore. Great. Or deli containers I like a lot in this capacity, even if I'm keeping them at home, because then I can still see everything. Just have a plan with what you're going to do with all of that food if there is a lot of food. Mostly because, actually, selfishly, by the end of the meal, I'm kind of done. By the end of the meal, I'm really hoping someone else is going to jump in and take care of those dishes. My heart is full, my belly is full, but my feet and my brain are tired, so I don't want to be asked any more questions. Where are the bags? Have you tried opening a drawer? We just tried looking. Can I just sit here nursing a glass of Pinot Grigio, please and thank you, and you just figure it out? I mean, all jokes aside, I don't mind, but I like to empower people. It's like, just go and do and be, because I already gone and did and been for the whole day cooking. So if you just want to take those, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Because also sometimes people will bring a dish and want to take their leftovers home with them. To each his own, but it's nice to give them something to bring it home in that's smaller than like their giant tray that they brought it. Okay, you get what I'm saying, right? You got the thing? The plate was made? Great. So that's what we have for today's podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I didn't even do a review for this one. This is coming out the day after the election. I know that there are a lot of people feeling a lot of things today. And so if you took the time to listen, I just want to say thank you so much. If you're listening to this in a different year, this was an election year, and it makes people feel some kind of way sometimes, and I get it. And I love you. I appreciate you listening, and I know there's a lot going on right now. I also genuinely hope that this helps you pull off a very successful Thanksgiving, and I hope all the videos that we're putting out this week, I'm calling it Thanksgiving week, where I'm just like at 5 videos, we're just going. I have completely skipped homeschool with my son a majority of this week just to be like, I'm getting this done. Between the cooking and the recording and the editing, etc. Yeah, it's been a fun week over here for me, and so I really, really hope you're enjoying it as well. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being awesome. If you haven't done so already, go leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching this on the YouTubes, comment down below. Are you hosting Thanksgiving this year? Or what dish are you looking the most forward to? I will probably say mashed potatoes. Because if I had it my way, my body would be 50% potato. Or it might be already 50% potato. Okay, love you so much. And until next week, bye guys.